Welcome to the Odd Moms on Call, the podcast where we get real.
Real moms, real talk, real impact.
Join our diverse panel of moms from across the U.S. and Canada as we unpack the messy realities of raising kids in today's world.
We're diving deep into how politics, policies, and culture shape our lives.
And most importantly, we talk to our kids about it all.
Get ready for honest, unfiltered, insightful, and sometimes odd revelations
as we make sense of the world,
one conversation at a time.
Oh, hey! You're back with Odd Moms for another crazy adventure. It's been a little while.
I am so excited for this episode, you guys, but it's also going to be real dicey, I think.
It's going to be dicey. It's also, we're giving you like a warning if it feels like we're not diving deep enough into anything. It's because it's very late for half of us. And for half of us, it's almost late. And so we're going to cover as much as we can. And then we'll probably come back and do this again and talk more about it.
Well, and honestly, too, it's noted that a lot of these things that we were going to talk about weeks ago, but life has just been lifing for all of us. And so I think there's been a lot of big things that we've kind of had to like add on to. So this is going to be like a really hefty episode.
Yeah. Well, and not only has life been lifing personally for us, but like life has been lifing in the country, and I can't keep up. I'm going to be completely honest with you. There's at least one section in here that I don't feel like I'm informed enough about, but I mean, we'll get to that. But yeah, to give you sort of an overview, and then we'll do our intros. But just so you have a taste of what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the No Kings movement, which is originally what we wanted to talk about way back when, and the bombings in Iran. We're also going to talk about the situation in Gaza a little bit. We're going to talk about Trump essentially declaring martial law in D.C. as of yesterday, as we're recording this. And then as recently as today or yesterday, the petition to overturn, I had to look up how to say this, Obergefell versus Hodges. So that is a lot, and we're going to talk about it. Let's meet your odd moms. I am Chelsea. I also host Quiet Connection Postpartum Mental Health. I am a stay-at-home mom, non-binary, and all the things. That's me. Hey, what's up?
Hey, I'm Britt. I host the Odd Mom Pod. I am a mom of 4 and a registered nurse as well.
Hi, I am Lindsey, and you can find me on TikTok documenting my art, maternal mental health, and all the things at big.sister.irl.
And I'm Jess, or Jessica. I am a psychologist, mom of 2 littles, and host the podcast Psych Talk.
We love we love each other, and we love you for listening. This is you turn the mic on, we hit record, and I just babble. So we're gonna dive in, you guys. We're gonna dive in because there's so much to cover. Let's start with what we originally wanted to talk about way back in June, which is the No Kings movement. And for those of you who were living under a rock, I don't know how you could not know about this. It was huge. There was participation across upwards of 2,100 cities, with upwards of 12 million people protesting across the country on the same day that Trump was hosting himself a little military birthday parade. So that was the No Kings protest movement. And yeah, guys, I want to hear from you, and then I'll chime in with how we celebrated.
I actually ended up having to work at the hospital, and so I didn't get to participate, which was sad because I really wanted to, but also I felt like in a different way I was serving my community, so it was okay. But it was incredible to see, and I was honestly really sad because Jonathan Van Ness came to the Oklahoma City protest, and I freaking missed it, you guys. I could have protested with JVN. I know. I would have been absolutely pumped, but did not get a chance to. Who all ended up getting to show up?
I went. I protested. my mom is obsessed with Jonathan Van Ness. I can't speak. So I'm gonna tell her that, and she's gonna be so jealous. Me and my husband actually used it as like a date day, which was really freaking cool. And it was hot as hell. It was like 90 something degrees. So we didn't bring the kids. But where we were was a pretty small town in Vermont. But it was huge. Luckily my husband's sitting right next to me. Do you remember how many people were at the protest? They counted. Was it like 700? It was close to 700 people in this really small Vermont town. You could count on one hand the number of cars that were like Trumpers that were like booing us. There were we're Vermont, we're liberal. So, but it was cool. There were families, there were little kids, there were bigger kids, there were pregnant people. There were people who are of like my parents and grandparents' age. Like, it was hugely diverse. It felt very safe, but again, I'm in a very liberal state with a lot of like-minded people, but it felt fucking amazing. It felt so good. My husband's sign said "No faux king way," and my sign, I don't even remember what mine sign said. It had two sides, though, because I couldn't decide. But yeah, did anybody else get to protest?
I didn't, and I'm glad you brought up what you did, Chelsea, about like feeling safe and stuff. So, my husband works Saturdays, so I was home with my two kids, and I live in South Carolina. And so I have made the active decision when there are protests and I don't have childcare to not go because I don't feel comfortable bringing my 1 and 4-year-old. So far, all the protests, and I've been very proud of my state, have been very peaceful, large turnouts, and you never know, especially living in a red state and with my kids being so young. It's something I struggle with because I'm very vocal. I'm an advocate. I want to show up, and I'm a mom, and my kids have to come first. And so
Also, 1 and 4 is so young, Jess.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I just, like, give yourself some grace.
Oh no, I know.
I'm like, because like, I didn't take my oldest to her protest until this year, and she's 11. And that was the first year I felt old enough, and I still only took my oldest. And
Mhm.
like, for the exact same reasons, especially when they're that young and there's so many people, they're easy to get lost, and you never know. So
Yeah.
like, your kids are so young too. You've got plenty of time.
Well, thank you, Britt. But it has been nice because like one of my closest friends and colleagues who I work with has been going to all of them. So she'll like send me the videos, like text me live updates, things like that. So like I feel like I'm participating from afar. But I will say, and I know Chelsea, you brought this up at the beginning, for me, living in a red state, it was really amazing to watch how far of reach it got and seeing people. And I don't know if you guys saw this man on TikTok that he lives in South Carolina in a tiny, tiny town, and he had a one-man protest. And he like just walked up and down like the main street, and like he gained a bunch of followers on TikTok. And like seeing people like that, just like speaking up for what they believe is right. I know we didn't really talk about the core messaging, but like solidarity, safeguarding immigrants, voting rights, like all of these things, and seeing how many people are actually physically showing up or sharing things on social media for me in a time that has felt so gloomy in many ways. That's a very easy way to put it, or light way to put it. It's nice to see like people showing up. So that was the biggest thing that I took out of it, even though I couldn't physically be present.
I just looked it up because I was curious, and estimates as of right now, as of today, are up to 5 million participants worldwide that they've been able to calculate. And obviously that's estimated because like those small town protests, like those aren't going to be as reported and things. So that's incredible. That is, I think, like record breaking turnout for protesting in general.
Yeah, just piggybacking right off of that, I was unable to go. Again, I have a 4-year-old, so kind of with Jess, I if I was able to go, I would plan on taking her, but her dance recital was right in the middle of it, our big event for the year. So I could not go, but in the town where we live, did not have anything. It's relatively closer to St. Louis, so people are more in the city area. There were quite a few, but in the small, very, very red town where I'm from, Missouri is a red state, but in the town itself, and I had the number so ready when we were originally going to do this because I could not believe it. But there were, I feel like 200 might be too many, but it was a huge number of people around our tiny courthouse in our hometown that were there. And someone had taken tons of photos, and it was everyone from very elderly people of all abilities, some children. So I don't doubt that, of that 5 million, that a lot of those were really small towns that you may be surprised about.
I think the reporting too, no, everywhere you look, it reports a different number. But I think what's important, and is something that I'm still trying to completely wrap my head around, is the number we were going for was that 3%. If 3% of the population sort of rises up in dissent, and in this case, No Kings was kind of a huge thing. It encompassed, like Jess was saying, so much, like in terms of immigration, in terms of voting rights, in terms of LGBTQIA plus, right? Like literally everything that's on the table right now. And we were like, our whole thing was, why are you celebrating your birthday using our tax money to host a military parade? Like, fuck that. We're gonna do the exact opposite. And we did hit that 3%. And then again, depending on where you check, it was a lot more, or it was like right on it.
Yeah, I was actually, even my kids, they were even doing No Kings marches and protests in Roblox in the games.
What?
That there were like groups of kids that were all doing, there's this game, what is it called? There's this game, and it's like you build, like, it's like people can build their own like little houses and cities, and you can like whatever. And there were kids on Roblox protesting No Kings that day. And so
That's so cool.
it was something I got to talk to my kids about later on. My daughter was like, I didn't have them that weekend, but so I obviously didn't take them, and for other reasons. But yeah, she was saying that even on Roblox, and asked about what it was, and so like it was a really cool way to even see like how even our younger generations who aren't marching up in the streets, or even using things like video games and things like that to find that camaraderie. Because I think when all this is going down and the whole world feels like it's burning down, that like hearing the stories of the groups, like even the single person in a small town, or like these larger groups that accumulated in these smaller towns, like I think what makes it part of being so like impressionable, only needing that 3%, is that it really does then light the fire of like camaraderie and fire to make a difference and a change and finally fight back.
Yeah, and I love hearing that, especially because it ties it back to like us as moms and as parents. Like, how is this impacting our kids, and how are our kids perceiving this? And again, like we didn't bring our kids, but it wasn't because we don't talk about this stuff, because my 3-year-old, we don't talk about this stuff, but my 9-year-old actually has lots of questions and asked if she could go. And the only reason that we didn't bring her is because it was very, 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 very hot, and she is pretty heat intolerant. So to hear that kids who may not have had an opportunity to be there for whatever reason were finding a way, like maybe that's the future of like protesting, like I don't know, or it's a different way of protesting using technology. Like these kids are freaking smart, man. They are smart. But how, before we like dive deeper and before we move on from this, like how do your kids know about the No Kings movement, or do they know what was going on that day? Or do you think they had any sort of idea that we had some stuff on our minds that day?
I will speak for my 1-year-old and say he had no idea. Um, and I don't really think my 4-year-old does, but like she's in school. Daycare, but now she started at 4K. And like they learn about president, like she had a whole section. So she like has knowledge of like president stuff, and we talk about it at home, just in a very developmentally appropriate way. But she asks a lot of questions about everything in life ever. So if she ever asks questions, we'll just, explain it to her in a developmentally appropriate way. But I don't think either of my kids, just being their ages, really understood what's going on. But we definitely have conversations in general about like, equality and, treating people fairly and kindly and things like that.
On that specific day, my daughter's only concern was the ballet recital. So
As
no,
it
not on
should
that.
be.
Yes, yes. But I know she hears my husband and I having conversations, and very similar to Jess, more of a, what are you talking about? Wait, what are you saying? And if I, was showing him pictures, we looked at the pictures of the protest and just kind of talked about what a protest was more than exactly what was going on there, but more what is it, and what is kind of happening.
My kids, my older two, but my younger two, we had seen, there was a protest for, I'm not quite sure what the protest was. It wasn't the No Kings protest, but there was another protest that had happened in June. I think it was an anti-ICE protest, actually, if I'm remembering correctly. But we were at the same park at the same time, and my kids watched it all walk by, and we hadn't shown up for the protest. I didn't even know it was that day. And so we discussed and have, like, all of my kids know what a protest is. But on No Kings specifically, I didn't have them, so couldn't say if they even knew what was going on. But my daughter did have questions. My oldest daughter, who plays Roblox, did have some questions after she had seen some stuff on Roblox about what No Kings meant. And her and I have talked pretty extensively about, Donald Trump and things like that, being in a very, very red state. She was hearing a lot of pro-Trump rhetoric, even in elementary school, right after the election and things like that. And was even hearing racist remarks kind of uptick and things towards the end of the school year. So her and I had a pretty extensive conversation about what it was. And she definitely understood. My other ones are 8, 6, and 4. So my 8-year-old kind of understands the protest understanding, and she'll say, I don't understand why people just can't understand. But she actually doesn't actually understand herself, but it makes sense, right? So that is kind of where we're at with that. But I think it's important to talk to kids about protesting, and I think especially with everything that's coming up, like, protesting might get kind of snuffed out for a while unless we are teaching our kids how to actively participate in it.
We've talked about this before, like being mindful of the media that you're consuming. So like I really only follow V Spear from Under the Desk News. I get a lot of my news from there. I also get a lot of my news from Jess because I trust Jess's sources. But V is really who I follow a lot. And they had kind of a different view on the protests, and they think that we may see an uptick because of the drastic measures that are being taken right now. And don't quote me, because like I said, I have to be very careful and mindful of how much I'm consuming. But one of their recent posts was talking about how, because they do like only good news on Thursdays or something like that. And they said sometimes it's really hard to find the good news, but you can find good things in a bad situation. And so they were this is kind of a tangent, but also not. It relates, I promise. They were talking about ICE, and they were talking about how like Trump had done the $50,000 sign-on bonus, and then he'd done the student loan forgiveness, and now as of like this week they're lower that there's no age limit, and one of their slogans is like there's no better bonding for a father and son than to join ICE. No joke. They said that may sound really scary, but how they view it is that it's not working, that they keep having to up the ante because people aren't joining. So they keep making more incentives. So it's just a different way to look at it, I think. And it gave me a little bit of hope in a really scary situation. Yes, Britt.
I wanted to give a little, just for like those of us who are also obviously really mindful of what media we're consuming. I found an incredible app recently. It's called Ground News. And my favorite thing about it is it has this blind spot section, and it will tell you blind spots for the left and the right. So it'll tell you like how much is reporting where. And then if like in your actual Discovery News stuff, like your top US, it's really nice because you can kind of get a gist of what's going on. But none of these actually, like if you click on them, it'll tell you who is reporting where and how they fall. But you don't have to get into the nitty gritty of like staying up to date on all of the things. But it gives a really good brief overview. And I loved the blind spot section because it can be really hard to see all of what's going on while not seeing all of what's going on.
I love that. We'll link that in the show notes too. And I saw all of us kind of like eyeing our phones. So
I just downloaded it.
Yeah. I'm gonna download it after.
Yeah, it's a goodie. I really like that I like the little bar on the bottom. It'll tell you exactly how much of who is reporting what. And so you can actually see it so much better. And then you're actually seeing the full sides of both stories because you're also seeing blind spots for the left. Like what is the right reporting that is looking good for them that they're using for leverage? It's been really helpful.
I love that. I'm gonna roll us into our next section just because, like we said, we're talking about events that have gone on. This is another one that it feels like I should say this was recently, but because it's like a new disaster every day, even though this happened in June and we're recording this in August.
Yeah, end of June 22nd.
It was the end of June. So the bombings in Iran by President Trump. Again, so just an overview. There were strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, and Iran retaliated with some missile strikes on a U.S. base in Qatar. Trump was all over, I don't know, is it called Truth Social, whatever it is that he is on, calling it this huge military success and saying that it was like the greatest thing ever. Everything he does is the greatest thing ever in his mind. But it was really scary for a lot of us. I remember the group chat that night being like, what the hell is going on? Let's talk about it a little bit. Like what did you what were your first thoughts? We kind of had an inkling that this was coming. We kept having hints that this was going to happen, and then it did. How did that hit you? How did that land?
So when I heard about the news, we were driving from my cousin's wedding to the reception. And so we were in the car and my husband was like, oh, and then probably said a bunch of swear words. And it was me, my sister, my brother-in-law, my husband, and we were just all like kind of frozen and just like, what is going to happen? Like, and it was, for me, it was just like a lot of fear of like, what is the outcome of this going to be? And you know, and I'll fully admit, like, foreign affairs is not something I'm nearly as knowledgeable about as U.S. government. And even then, I'm not super knowledgeable. So I was like trying to also like research, because I'll be honest, like I saw a lot of people on both sides, like either criticizing or for or things like that. I also saw a lot of like lack of nuance, which you see on social media all the time. Like people that were speaking up against it were getting criticized, like, oh, so you think Iran should have nukes? And it's like, no, nobody's saying that. But I think I just felt a lot of fear and worry, like, of what is this going to turn into? Like, is this going to be back in like the Bush era, 9/11? Like, there's
I
just
was just
so
gonna
many
say us
things
millennials, right?
racing through my mind of like, what is going to happen because of this?
Yeah, my dad was in the military during that, and so on 9/11, my mom pulled us out of school early because my dad was deploying. Like we knew right then and there that he was leaving, and so for me, my husband is what I'm now calling him, you guys, was a pilot in the military,
I love
and
that.
because I mean he's a husband. Anyway, he's a pilot in the Navy, and he's still technically in. He's being medically retired out actively right now. And so I texted him immediately. It was like, please tell me they are not somehow like pulling you, like anybody who's deployable. So that was my concern, was honestly my kids and my kids' dad. I was like, I can't. I remember as a kid how scary that was. And my dad was deployed most of my childhood because of everything that was going on. And so it was definitely a weird, traumatizing moment of like, holy shit, are we headed back into what we were doing under Bush? And that was terrifying. As far as like conversations with my kids and stuff goes, I actually didn't have any conversations with them about it. I've been trying really hard not to get spun up into the fear of everything. I'm trying to keep myself like aware and open to all the possibilities of what could happen, because who fucking knows at this point? Like it literally, every day I wake up, I'm like, here we're doing this now. But I those kinds of things are hard for me, is unless it's one of those things. And we were talking about was if staying silent makes like risking denial and those kinds of things, or if like you feel bad about not talking about certain things. But I also think as a parent, sometimes my job is to protect my kids from the hellscape that we are living in, and that preparing them from the hellscape does not mean that they have to know everything that's going on in the thick of it at the time. And so that's kind of where we were at on our side.
I agree along with you, Brittany, in that it is a really hard decision to decide, what do you talk about? What do you not talk about? Does it make me a bad parent if I'm not talking about everything? Am I, staying silent on this? But, I didn't have a conversation with my 4-year-old or my 13-year-old that has Down syndrome. For both of them, I mean, it would have been a pointless conversation that would honestly just scare them. And for what it's not like I know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. That's I'm scared of what's going to happen. And it definitely was. I had friends that were traveling and just had sent me a text that were just like, have you seen this yet? Like, we are all, out doing this fun thing, and just stopped and are just like, what is happening? But like you said, Chelsea, definitely that millennial throwback of remembering, is this going to be one of those moments where I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing?
You guys, we've been through way too many unexpected life events.
The unprecedented times.
Yeah. It's so odd that the unprecedented times aren't becoming unprecedented anymore, because I'm like, I feel like
I remember
now it is what it is.
I remember in Trump's first term, talking to my mother-in-law, and just having this conversation of like, oh my God, like, how do we get through this? Like, how do we do this? And at the time she was telling me, she's like, well, we've been through things. Like, you have to think about, like, we went through desegregation, and we went through like we've been through presidencies that have disasters, and now we're at this point, and I'm like, don't think we've actually been through this since the revolution.
And that's how we've ended up back here, because everybody that remembers that is no longer alive.
No, exactly. So like, yeah, I think we're past the point of like, oh yeah, we've gotten through these things before. Every era has its challenges. When you're waking up every day to a new unprecedented event that's off the rails, I will say we found out again, this is going to sound like I never have my kids, but my kids were not with us. It was my husband and I my husband surprised me and we were celebrating our anniversary and he was taking me to where we honeymooned. It's a resort locally. And the weirdest shit happened, you guys. So we had heard about the strike that the bomb, whatever, that the places had been bombed. And we were freaking out and we're like, okay, we're going to take this time. We're going to the spa. We're just going to like check out and then we can deal with this later. And as we're driving through this mountain town, there's no cell service all of a sudden. We drive through this town all the time, but the cell service is gone. We stopped at the gas station to get gas and none of the cash registers or the gas pumps were working. Nothing was working. They couldn't accept credit cards. Nothing was working. Everything was down. We looked at each other and we're like, is this it? We're like, is this
This is the end of the world.
seriously? Like, seriously,
We've reached the end.
we were like, is it happening? We're like, the first thing that they take out is communications, right? Like, and we can't, our phones aren't working and we were losing
We'd
our
all be
minds.
screwed. Honestly,
Oh
if that's
my
the way to do it,
God.
that's the way to do it.
It-
We're screwed.
It wasn't that. It was it was a Verizon thing, I think. And it was just down in that town. So, but for a solid like 15 to 20 minutes, we were losing our shit. We were like, oh my God, are we under attack? Like, is this the end
It's
now?
the beginning of the end.
Yes. So it was really fucking scary. And I, like you, Britt, like I have, my stepdad is retired air guard. And I called him just because I had so many questions. I was like, how could he do this without congressional approval? How could this be allowed to happen? And he explained to me the circumstances in which it was possible. It was an abuse of power. So the circumstances that they cited they shouldn't have applied, but they did them anyway. And he basically kind of talked me down because I was like, okay, what level of panic should I be at right now? Like the OCD in me. And I'm like, I'm not asking you like, give me all the reasons why I should panic. Just like, what level of panic should I be at right now? And his explanation to me was, he was like, I always think about it in terms of the safety of my family first. And he said, I'm not worried about us right now. With what just happened, in his opinion, he said it was another distraction, which Trump is known for. It was an abuse of power and it was a dumb ass move, but he said he wasn't worried about us. And so that kind of put my mind at ease. And just like you guys, I didn't really talk to my kids about it for the same reasons. I'm like, well, I'm not going to scare them. If something happens and I need to prepare them, then I'll go down that route. But beyond that, we didn't talk about it. So it kind of brings us into our next section, which was a topic that it's being talked about a lot right now and from both sides of the fence, and it's a situation in Gaza. And we can speak as the Odd Moms panel. We have our group chat, and there was a moment where I feel like the planets aligned, or I don't know, but all of us sort of came to the same conclusion one night, and we were like, are we going to say something about this? And every single one of us was like, yeah, it's felt like this has been a long time coming and we need to say something about this. So when you're talking about the bombings in Iran, you cannot ignore what's going on in Gaza and Palestine. But at the heart and the core of it is the starvation and lack of medical resources being kept from children and families in Gaza, no matter what side you fall on in terms of what's going on over there. There are kids dying thousands and thousands of kids dying every day of malnutrition and lack of medical care. I'm just looking. So the highest monthly numbers to date are nearly 12,000 children under the age of 5 in Gaza suffer from acute malnutrition. Famine has been declared. Hospitals, malnutrition centers, they're overwhelmed. You can see it on TikTok. I mean, I'm not on TikTok anymore, but you can see it on I see it on Red Note, which is the Chinese version, which I freaking love.
I even see it on Instagram
Yeah,
still.
but you can see like their NICU units are like using an oxygen supply that's meant for 2 isolates max, and they're like busting them into like 12 to 24, and it's insane. And we're at a point where not saying something feels really, really wrong. I won't speak for everyone, but for us, I feel like we needed to speak out. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you've talked about that at all with your kids, or just what you want listeners to know about this absolute shitstorm that's going on over there.
Yeah, it's been wild. This has been one of those hard things as a parent, where it's again one of those things. How much do you share with your kids? How much not? I've had some brief conversations with my oldest about certain things. Mostly it'll be things that like I'm consuming I'm watching Instagram or I'm listening to a podcast or something, and she'll ask, "Mom, what are they talking about?" Those kinds of things, but not anything that I've actually like sought out and talked with my kids about. And it's hard because I struggle with it, I guess it's just like one of those things as a parent you just struggle with, because I feel like on one hand, my job as a parent is to make sure my children are informed and that they know and are aware of things like war and the world outside of us. Because for me, it's very important for me to not raise a child who only sees the people in the United States as viable people and does not understand the rest of the world and the way that it operates or doesn't operate. And so it's so hard because I don't want to instill a fear or anxiety in my children. I don't also want to fuel them with propaganda that could be missing out even on the far left side, right? Like I don't want to also fall into that line where I'm giving my kids ammo to say things to other kids, because I don't feel like that's appropriate either, especially as my kids are getting older and there is a lot of open discussion about various things that I don't think children should be discussing at school happening. And so, but I also am very much on the side of like when, if, and how questions come up, like I'm always very open with my kids about this. And so my oldest does know that there is a war. We've talked about a little bit about genocide and what that means, because that was a question when something came up. I said something to somebody, I was like, I cannot believe this amount of genocide. And my oldest said, what does that mean? And so we kind of discussed it as far as that goes. But it's been crazy. And I very much agree that at this point, if you're not speaking out about it, or you're not openly opposing it, that you're almost contributing to the continuation of it, just like with races and things like that, like if you're not against it, you're also kind of saying that you're partially for it. And that for me is one thing that I do want to instill in my children, is that they will see me advocating and talking about what I feel and what I think is important and ensuring that I'm doing my side. But I also don't want to push it on my kids too much either.
I think there's several important things that you touched on too, and things that, like, I'm going to be completely honest and vulnerable right now, listeners. Like, I am not fully aware of what the circumstances are that are contributing to this war that is happening. And again, it is because I can't handle the amount of unprecedented events in our own country. But my new mantra kind of is, what would Miss Rachel do? Miss Rachel is all over social media. She is 100% saying, if you have a platform, big or small, you should be speaking about this. And I agree 100%. And I'm not speaking about the war because I'm not informed about that. But what I am speaking about is kids dying. Because in no situation does anyone deserve to be starved to death. But these children are our children. All children are our children. And as mothers and as parents, we have a duty to protect and ensure that these kids grow up and have a future. And so, yeah, I am admitting I do not know hardly anything about why the war is happening, how it is happening, where exactly it is happening. But I do know that kids are dying because medical supplies and food is being intentionally withheld. And that's not okay. I don't care where you fall politically. It's not a political thing. If you think starving someone is a political stance, I think you need to take a really long, hard look in the mirror because it has nothing to do with politics. In terms of talking to my kids, we have I supported, there's a business called Muzzy, and they have dolls that teach about different cultures, and I purchased a doll, and the money goes towards helping to get food to the kids in Gaza. And I had to do a lot of research because I wanted to make sure that that money was actually going to that, because there's a lot of people doing lots of crazy things. But what we got was this beautiful doll named Mina, who wears a hijab, and she has a book about Palestine and Gaza. And I have not read the book with my 3-year-old because it is heavy, but my 9-year-old has read the book. But my 3-year-old loves the frickin' doll. She wants to buy more hijabs. She wants to learn about what they mean, what the colors mean. And so we're bringing the culture into our home without bringing the war and the genocide. So we're informing without bringing fear, I guess. I don't know. Any other thoughts?
That is such a beautiful way to do it, Chelsea. I love that you said, one, I am not 100% informed on this, and I don't care how informed you are. You should be able to understand that starving all of these children is not okay. So I wanted to share a story, one, about how proud I am of a friend, mother, almost doctor, who is getting some really nasty ramifications for speaking out. One of my very close friends and a first-time mother made a very small comment on Instagram against a doctor who was basically condoning the genocide and agreeing with a lot of the things that are going on. And just from this one simple comment, there is an Instagram account. It's at Doctors Against Anti-Semitism too. And all they do all day long is just call people out. And she got her whole full legal name put out there, her where she works. They were sending emails to her boss trying to get her medical license revoked over one comment. I mean, she's always sharing a lot of information, but I guess they found this one comment, and she didn't even know about it until her boss at work called her into their office and was like, "Hey, I'm getting all these emails basically asking me to fire you and remove you from the premises." And then she's also getting a lot of death threats. "We will hunt you down, find you." And it's crazy to see those kinds of comments. And then you're like, oh, well, if you're going to make those kind of comments, I guess I kind of understand why you're okay with this. Like, I guess that tracks. But yeah, I'm so proud of her for continuing to speak up. But she has ended up just having to delete her social media. And luckily, her place of work is on her side, and none of those things are happening to her. But it was very scary, and I'm just so proud of her, first time mom. And almost adopt her for, caring and speaking up when if she didn't, she wouldn't have had to go through that. But she did anyway. So if you are scared to say something, I totally understand. But even just sharing information is an act of saying something, even if you're not using your own personal words.
That was the first time I learned the term doxing, was through that kind of a situation, is having all of your information given out because of something that you say. And Jess, I want to hear your response too, but Jess in particular, I love when Jess takes on our trolls on things that we post. And we did, when we posted our statement about the children in Gaza, we had this one account that just kept going and going and going. And I had to text you, Jess, and be like, they're in our DMs too. Like, they're rage baiting. They're rage baiting. Maybe you can talk about it a little bit more, but like it was getting to me at first. And then I had to be like, oh no, you don't actually want to, like, you just want to make us mad. That's all you really want to do.
Yeah. Well, and Chelsea, I didn't know if you were going to bring up that situation, but that goes into what I was going to say, going off of Lindsay's comments. And I'm very proud of your friend too. I don't know her, but I think social media has, on the one hand, made it so much easier to speak up and be informed, but on the other hand, made it so much harder. So like October 7th, I started trying to educate myself as much as I could on Israel Palestine, and I started speaking up and everything started way before October 7th. This has been going on for 70 plus years. But every time I spoke up, if I said something pro-Palestine, I would get a bunch of nasty DMs for people that were pro-Israel. If I said anything, anti-Semitism is bad, or like you can care about people and not like their government, trying to create nuance, I would get, people saying negative things. And admittedly, I stopped posting about it for a while because I was like, okay, clearly I'm either not informed or also my mental health can't take it. And, bringing in that conversation, Chelsea, that you're referring to, and I don't want to get into all the nuance, but like to me, it came down to like a lack of nuance and wanting to be right. I think, there are people on both sides, pro-Palestine, pro-Israel, that regardless of what you say or do, are going to stand their ground. And like everybody has already said so far, at the end of the day, when we think about starving children, whether you believe it's Hamas starving the children, or whether you believe it's Israel starving the children, or whether you believe it's whoever, at the end of the day, they're starving children. And I know something that came up in that was, well, the images going around, those kids have chronic illnesses. Okay, and children with chronic illness, and there is some evidence that a couple of the viral images, those children have chronic illnesses. I work in a children's hospital. I see kids with those chronic illnesses. And like, yeah, some of them may have nutritional deficiencies, and children with chronic illness don't deserve to starve either. Like, and I know you also already brought up Miss Rachel, and I was listening to a podcast she was on the other day, and she was basically like, I finally spoke out because I thought about Mr. Rogers when he had the black man on his, TV show first time. They shared a like little kiddie pool together, and she was like, if he can do that, like I need to speak out, because at the end of the day, I care about all children. And Chelsea, you said that beautifully. Like, as parents here, we should care about all children. Like, we don't want to see children suffer. They're innocent. Like, they depend on their adults, if they still have adults in their lives. And if I wonder frequently, if we take the label, it's not a label, but that's the only word coming to mind, of Gaza out of it, and we just talked about starving children, would people have a different reaction? Because like I said, it's become so politicized. Social media has caused immense conflict about things. And Chelsea, I admire you for, acknowledging you don't know all the nuance, because I think that's another thing. And I don't know all the nuance either. I don't think any of us could know all the nuance. And by any of us, I mean white people sitting in America that have never lived outside of here, that don't have ancestors in either Israel, Palestine. I think a lot of times people sit in their echo chamber and just hear what they hear, and then they post so confidently, and it just causes further chaos and divide. And then we just need to strip back the layers and be like, but at the end of the day, children are starving. So what can we do about that?
Yeah. And I think that that was where it shifted for me. And it feels like that's where it shifted for a lot of us, at least sitting here, is yeah, we may not, like you said, have the nuance. We may not know the nuance of the situation as a whole, but at the root of it, at the very root of it, if you just take everything else out of it and just, this is terrible, maybe I'll take this out. But like when you were talking about it, all I was thinking about is like when we were kids, we would see those commercials for kids starving in other nations, and for the pleas for us to donate or to like,
Yeah, they're like, they're for 35 cents a day. You
yeah,
can feed a child and wherever.
and again, going into that, I'm like, there's lots of documentaries, and I don't know how legit a lot of those things were either, but it evokes something in you, and it obviously like evoked something in American TV consumers, because the ads ran for a long time and we were drawn in and we were like, oh my God, yeah, no child should starve. So if we take all of it out and we just look at it as there are children dying by the hundreds, by the thousands every day because they don't have access to food or medical care. Those are two of the most basic rights or needs, anything, any way you want to describe it. And if we just looked at it that way, if maybe people would think a little differently, but I'm not sure. I really don't know anymore in this world that we're living in. I really don't know. I'm going to keep us rolling along. I know, again, like I said, like it's going to feel like we're not diving deep enough. And I think I say this with every episode, but for this one in particular, I think we're going to dive into it again. But
well, and a lot of these things too, like as things are gonna continue to roll on, like a lot of these things that we're talking about aren't short fixed situations. They're not one thing that we're gonna be able to talk about and say like, oh, okay, this is our summarized feelings of everything in this. It's because, I mean, all of this is still so ongoing. Like, I mean, this is we're at what, like 600, 700 days now for Gaza. Like, this is going to be something that we're definitely going to talk about again. And I think too that's important, like anybody that is listening that is wanting us to dive in specifically to a deeper thing, please make sure to let us know, like on social media or in our email box. Like we want to know what you guys want to hear specifically about, so please feel free to do that.
yes, please. oddmomsoncall@gmail.com or Instagram. Like I'm on the DMs. I'm there. I'll answer you. I'm a real person. No bots here. But bringing us back to the US again, I don't even know how to like preface this because it seems so wild, but nothing's wild anymore. As of yesterday, I believe, yesterday was the press conference that was literally just a bunch of gibberish and people looking like idiots. Sorry, that's an opinion, not a fact.
Says who?
I don't know. You know me.
Seems pretty facty to me.
I mean, it was a shit show. But Trump essentially declared martial law in DC, and him and his cronies spewed several facts that were completely incorrect about rising crime rates in DC, which are wrong. So wrong. Crime rates are down, public safety and stuff. Like the things he was saying were wrong. But he he took control of, so he, let me be factual. He invoked Section 740 of the DC Home Rule Act, claiming rising crime, despite data showing it as a historic low. He deployed 800 National Guard troops and took control of the DC police. So they are under his authority now. And yeah, local leaders are not happy. Citizens are not happy. And the wider consensus is that this is like the test site for the rest of the country. He's doing it in DC, and then we're going to start to see it in other states and in other cities, which is absolutely terrifying. He's also talking about like criminalizing homelessness and putting them in camps. It's concentration camps. When Hitler rose to power, he started with the homeless and the disabled and put them in camps, and that's what Trump is doing. And
What's crazy, it's all under this guise of like ending homelessness.
Yes.
But like they're still unhoused. You just now have them in a prison. But okay. Like it's mind blowing.
he's saying, well, I don't know if he's saying, who speaks for him, I don't know. Like talking about like getting people who don't have a home or maybe struggling with mental health disorders, like getting them into a place where they'll receive treatment. Well, there wasn't space for that to begin with, and you've cut Medicaid and Medicare, and so there's even less spaces, and there's more places closing down. And Jess, I think, can probably speak to this a little bit in terms of the mental health side of things. And the fact that it's just a bold-faced lie. Like they're not being delicately picked up off the streets and dropped into a warm bed and given a therapist and a detox counselor or things like that. They're being put in camps. And if you want to take it further than that, if you want to take it to immigrants, whether you're here legally or illegally, whatever it is, you want to talk about alligator Alcatraz? Yeah, Britt, chime in. I always see you go for it. Yeah.
I'm like, I say I wait for it. I'm like, ooh, there are no illegal people on stolen land.
Yes,
first off, too. I just would like
thank
to say
you.
that out there. I speak for myself, maybe others. But yeah, I think it's the big thing too is these camps, they give the government an out to hiding deaths, hiding abuse, hiding starvation and things like that. And so, you know, as somebody who works often with a lot of detoxing unhoused individuals in an emergency room in a not great part of Oklahoma City, you can die from withdrawals. You can, like, these are going to be, when these people are being picked up, there's so much more than it's just these people are being picked up and put into a camp, like you said. It's like these people are going to be slammed in there like sardines, where people are going to die because of withdrawals, because of starvation, because of abuse from the conditions, the guards, and it's just, it's scary. It's starting to go, it's too far. We're way too far.
It's not even, and like you keep saying, like it's going to, it's not, it's happening.
You're right.
Yeah.
This is actively happening, which is terrifying.
So like in DC now, the difference I think is that they're like militarizing it's becoming a policed state. It's not a state. I don't know what you want to call it. But anyway, think A Handmaid's Tale, and that's what's happening right now. The government is taking control of local authorities and using military to police people based on what they think is right and wrong. But beyond that, it's already happening. It's happening with people who are deemed criminals, even if they have no criminal record. They're just from a different country. People are being detained coming back from other countries who are completely legal, upstanding citizens. We had a superintendent of one of our school districts be detained. My therapist was detained on her trip back from Paris. Yeah, like, and she has no idea why, and I'm not going to get into it because it's her story, and I also don't want to like cross that line. So it's happening. It's happened to what? She is a white woman from Vermont. So it's not just happening to Black and brown and people who may not fit what their ideal is. It's happening to everyone. And we shared a video a couple of weeks ago. I want to find it again and share it again because I think it's really important to watch. And it's the amount of 911 calls coming from these detainment camps. They are overwhelmed. 911 is being overwhelmed with calls from these camps where people are being sent because people are dying, or there are riots breaking out, or there was some one of them, I don't know if it was a nurse that was on the phone or if it was a quote unquote prisoner, because that's what they are. They're being held as prisoners, but they're saying like, oh, he's bleeding. And the dispatcher saying, well, is he breathing? And she's like, oh, never mind. He's not breathing anymore. So you guys don't have to come. And the dispatcher, like, I'm paraphrasing, but I want to share it again because these are real calls and this is really happening. It's gonna happen. It's happening. And with Trump doing what he's doing in DC, I think that's just step one, and shit's about to get really scary. I will say, our governor, who I don't agree with on a lot of things, but our governor in Vermont declined to send any U.S. military service members to aid in ICE, whatever, to aid them at all. And so I am proud of that. He did also hand over all of the data from our WIC programs and things like that, and justified it as this is all information that they would have access to anyway. And if I said no, then we might have our funding pulled more. So it's a give and a take. But I think it's going to be less of a give and a lot more of a take if things continue the way that they are continuing. So I know it feels really depressing, and you know what? It is. My husband this morning just told me, he's like, I really don't know why I'm depressed, but I'm really depressed and I can't tell you why. And I said, because everything is heavy, not just everyday things that we deal with as parents, like making sure the kids are fed and that the laundry's done and the dishes are done and that the kids are at their camps on time, school's starting again, getting all those things. Like, those are normal stressors that will burn out any parent. But we're dealing with all of these things that we're talking about, and every day is something new. And today's something new is the petition to overturn Obergefell versus Hodges, which, so again, I got to read my notes because I want to be right. But so in June 2015, the Supreme Court ruled that the fundamental right to marry is guaranteed to same-sex couples by both the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment from the Constitution. That, I mean, for a lot of us here, it's just common frickin' sense, but that was that. The impacts of that were massive in many levels. It improved mental health and quality of life for LGBTQ people in general, couples. It also stimulated the economy, like, to a massive degree. Jess did this research for us, and I'm so thankful. And I obviously just scrolled to the top by accident. So same-sex marriages were estimated to boost state and local economies by an estimated $5.9 billion and generated an estimated $432.2 million in state and local sales tax revenue since that original decision. And it supported an estimated 41,300 jobs for 1 year. So it was like,
All I'm saying is the gays know how to throw a party, man. We know what we're doing.
we know how to throw a party.
It makes sense that we are putting out all this money for a good party.
Yes.
I think it's just a jealousy thing at this point.
Well, and then we can get into like lavender marriages and whatnot, like where
It's because this made it so that you didn't have to be in a heterosexual marriage to be able to have the benefits of marriage.
yes.
And now, this was all put out, petitioned by that same baker lady, right?
I don't think it was the baker. Because,
It wasn't the baker.
No.
It was Kim Davis, who got arrested back in 2015 for refusing to sign the same-sex marriage.
It was the same-sex marriage lady.
Yeah.
She was the court in Kentucky, I think, or Kansas. I can't remember. I should know that.
Who has been divorced 3 times.
3 times.
is on her 4th marriage.
Are you?
No, I'm not.
husband-
No, I'm not.
But
fucking with
husband
you.
number 4 is also husband number 2. But
Oh,
then
okay.
when she was married to husband number 1, she had 2 kids with him and then got pregnant with twins by a different man while she was married. And that man became husband number 3. But then husband number 2 and 4 adopted those twins. I did some deep dive into her today.
Yeah.
Not
So
at all.
whatever you do, you girl, you.
I love it. No,
you
I'm
do,
so for
like,
it.
do what you want with your life and see how that turns out, and we'll hold our opinions. But
You know, I
if
know
you
this
if you
is
say if
probably
you're
so
protecting
surprising.
the sanctity of marriage, I don't
part.
think you're the best spokesperson for that.
I mean, but look at our other large spokesperson, our president. You know?
Yeah, let's
You
talk
know,
about
like
that.
all of these so many conservative politicians, and like how many times have they been married? How many times have they been caught cheating on their spouses in affairs in their marriages? And it's comes down to, again, the party that is so like pro traditional marriage is only that way because it's a means of control, and then they get to then abuse the system because it's the system that was written for them and not the system that was written for the people that it could benefit. It's mind-blowing.
Oh, it is. And it's one of those things. And I mean, I heard this all throughout Trump's first presidency. I heard this all throughout Biden. I heard this especially in 2024 that Trump is not anti-LGBTQ. And I could argue all day
That is
at everything that he has done. But like, this is a prime example of, you know, people who months ago were like, okay, first they're going to attack trans rights and then they're going to come for marriage equality. And people are like, stop, you know, blowing
would have
things
been
out of
so much
proportion.
more helpful if they would have just released like a 940 something page document that was going to line out exactly what the plan was. That would have made all of this so much easier to navigate if we would have known what was coming.
I know. If only they had done that.
That would have been
I
such a
wish-
good idea.
Damn.
Brittany,
Oh.
dropping facts.
Yeah, dropping. It's
But
it's almost like they gave us these clues, these little tiny breadcrumbs. And we
Breadcrumbs.
just, yeah. I don't know.
Wild.
It is
But it's just, and I don't know. My fear with this is that if the Supreme Court does decide to look at it, 5 of the 9 current justices already voted on this. And 3 of those 5 voted or dissented. And we know we already have a 6-3 split. Now, granted, Amy Coney Barrett surprises us sometimes. Sometimes, and she'll like side with the liberal justice. But I guess I just go back to like, why are we talking about this? Like, why does it matter? And like, I always have a different perspective because I'm from Massachusetts. So we were the first state, like I'm not anymore clearly because I talk about South Carolina all the time, but like that's where I grew up. We legalized same-sex marriage in 2005. Like I have spent more of my life, right? Am I doing math correct? Yes. I was like, how old am I? Like living somewhere or claiming somewhere as my home that values marriage equality than not. And like I go and bring this back to being mom, like I look at my kids a lot of times, and especially my daughter, not that but I have a white son. Like he has such inherent privilege. But especially looking at my daughter and being like, you're potentially going to have less like rights or grow up. And like, I don't obviously know her sexual orientation or anything like that. She's 4, but like, these are conversations that I guess I just didn't expect to have as a parent, to be like, well, there was a brief, hypothetically, if this does get overturned, there was a brief time where, you know, so-and-so and so-and-so were allowed to get married. Because I have a number of gay friends that are married. She is well aware. This is one thing that I talk to my kids about. Like, she is well aware that 2 boys can be married, 2 girls can be married. She has met friends of mine that are same sex and have kids, and she's never asked like how that happened. She's just kind of like, oh, 2 daddies, that's cool. Like, does not care. But the fact that there might be a time where I have to be like, well, that was legal and now it's not anymore, is just like mind blowing to me as a parent. Like, I feel like we should be moving forward with things, not backwards.
It harkens back to, I don't know if it was, I think it was when we talked about gender and bathrooms, and it's like, who the hell was thinking about this before someone decided to get loud about it? None of us. No, I mean, obviously there's always, I'm not going to say that there hasn't been homophobia and that the LGBTQIA plus community has not had to fight tooth and nail for the rights that they have, even though it's still not enough. But what I will say is, it's like, it was not a issue, like a political issue, like it has been thrust into being. It's just, it's insane. And again, it's one of those things that it's like, okay, do I let this be the thing that breaks me down? What am I going to let, what's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back? And I guess that, like, that leads us to, at least today, like right now, where we're sitting right now, what's hitting you the hardest? And that might be a really, for me, it's a really difficult question to answer, because like I just said, it's like, what's going to be the thing? What's going to be the thing that finally does me in? And I don't have a good answer. I feel like some days it all creeps in and I cry and I let myself feel it. And then I remind myself that we're doing this and that I'm getting the doll from Muzzy and teaching my kids about other cultures, and that, like, rest is resistance and things like that. But, like, I can't pinpoint one thing. I wonder how the rest of you feel about that.
For me, it's pretty similar to you, Chelsea. There's not one thing. I spend a lot of time when I'm doing things. Like I went this past weekend. I was relatively close to you, Jess. I went to Raleigh, North Carolina over the weekend. I got to visit a friend who just had her first baby. And I'm like, I'm getting to go and do this super fun thing. And everything seems so fun. And we're just pretending like everything is fun. But everything is not so fun. And it's like, it's balancing getting to do like fun things and still getting to pretend like everything is great, nothing is that bad. And then, you open up your phone, you turn on the TV, and you're like, oh, I'm just living in back to our last episode, I'm just living in my little privilege bubble, and I need to come down. And, I think for me, it's a balance of how much am I allowing myself to spend time in that privilege bubble of not pretending like things are bad.
I think for me, as being an openly queer individual, and I'm now getting out of my marriage, which we have had to like hasten because we were worried about Oklahoma ending no fault divorce, which was going to be a thing. But now, like, as an openly queer individual who is dating people of the same gender and other genders that are similar and not similar, it's scary. I think today's ruling of the Obergefell versus Hodges challenge, I think, has been one of the first things where I'm like, holy shit, we're like really doing it. Like they're really going for it. And I know it's so easy to say that like all of these things are like so hard and scary, but like not until it like individually impacts you is something like, oh God, like this could change who I could marry, and conversations that I've had with my kids about being gay and things like that now, like that is definitely something that is kind of a little scary. So I'm trying to find the joy and where I can, and been traveling to see friends on little day trips here and there as much as I can. I'm currently out visiting a friend in Texas just because I needed a couple days to just unplug and be and find joy. And it's hard. It's a lot of fear. It's a lot of anger. It's hard. It's a hard life right now.
So I feel like it's all heavy, like was being said. But like Britt was saying, I think right now in this moment, the thing that is hitting me as well the most is the petition to overturn the Supreme Court ruling. And I think for me, because I was like reflecting, listening to all of you talk, I mean, there's a lot of layers to it. But if I really reflect on why I think this one's hitting the hardest, is because this is probably the one thing that I accurately predicted was coming down the pipeline. And, I and many other people were told, you're just being dramatic, stop fear mongering. And with that disclaimer, we have a petition from one woman. So, I do want to be realistic. We don't know if the Supreme Court is going to relook at this case, things like that. But the fact that there is even the petition is scary. The fact that many of us were saying this last year, many years ago, and were called dramatic. And it's at least in my experience, when things come to fruition, oh, we could predict this happen, things like that, then the goalpost moves. Well, it's not this, it's now this. And it's just it's not even a hamster wheel because it's not the same thing. We're picking up a bunch of stuff, but I feel like we're on a hamster wheel. It's just something we're going and getting nowhere good very fast.
I think something that's super important, and it's something that I saw today a lot across all social media. And we talk about, right, what's impacting us, what's hitting us the hardest, and then that guilt that comes from our place of privilege of yeah, we can turn off the TV, we can put down our phone. The example that was given was that Taylor Swift, if you're a Swiftie, which we are in my house, Taylor Swift just announced a brand new album coming out on 12.
We already bought it.
You already bought it? Oh my God.
Yes, I was in line. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
for
my God.
76 minutes.
Oh, you pre-ordered
I have a Taylor
it.
Oh, I meant pre-ordered
sweatshirt
it.
on right now.
You have
I
your
did that.
Tay-Tay sweatshirt on?
I
Yeah.
love it.
So Taylor Swift just announced her new album, and it's okay to be really freaking excited about that. It is okay to feel joy. It is okay to go visit your friend who just had a baby and be really happy that you get to spend time with them. It's okay to feel joy doing things that fill your cup while also holding space for the heavy. You don't have to live in it, which is a privilege for a lot of us. But I think what a lot of us in Odd Moms, not just the panel here, what we're doing is small acts of rebellion and small acts of advocacy every day amidst the glimmers, amidst the joy. Because if we let ourselves sink into the pit of despair, or from the Never-Ending Story, the swamp of sadness, R.I.P. Artax. Was that the horse's name? Please tell me I got that right. You guys didn't watch the Never-Ending Story?
I have no idea.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm taking a personal offense to this, and your homework assignment this weekend is you have to watch. You cannot claim to be a millennial and not have seen a Never-Ending Story. Anyway, I love you all so much. So I think, honestly, it's allow yourself to feel the joy, allow yourself to find the glimmers. I know Jess is Googling the Never-Ending Story. This is ridiculous.
And honestly, that's
Really, I've
how
never heard of it.
that's how we model resilience for our kids.
Yes.
Because as parents, I think there's very few things that we can do to prepare our kids for the world. And we are learning that every day you really don't know what's going to happen. And so there is so many uncertainties in life every day that us modeling to our children those small forms of resilience, or the importance of us taking our time to make sure that we're filling into ourselves, teaches our children how to encounter difficult situations when it comes time for them to. And we can't prepare them for everything that's going to happen, but if we teach them how to take care of themselves mentally, emotionally, by doing that ourselves, we're then showing our children how to do that. And I think that's something that you can't really, it's not a lesson you can learn other than by watching it happen.
Absolutely. We are very quickly approaching the point where we're going to get to our hot take, and then we have to go back to real life. Before we get to our hot take, I just want to list some resources. They will be in the show notes. But like we said, if you're feeling overlord, if you're feeling overwhelmed, same. But talking about it with your peers, talking about it with your kids, it's the first step in change. So some resources for democracy and protest, there's Little Justice Leaders. They're kid-friendly activism activities and curriculum, and there's a kids book about activism that's for ages 6 to 10. I love all of their books. They have a kids book about racism, they have a kids book about pretty much everything, and they're great. If you want to talk about war and global conflict, there's PBS Parents, How to Help Kids Feel Safe When the News is Scary, and there's the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. They have some guides for families as well. In terms of the humanitarian crisis, you can look into UNICEF, who reports on Gaza, stories like Gaza Soup Kitchen or Hamada Show, to share hope and human resilience. And we will link Muzzy Brand and the Dolls if you want to look into that. Political literacy, there's Kid News, which is a daily news podcast for kids. The 10 News, again, youth-friendly current events. And Newsomatic app, which is kid-focused global headlines. Again, be mindful with that. Your kids don't need to know absolutely everything, and you want to be in control of the narrative a little bit so that it's age-appropriate and developmentally appropriate. And then in terms of action-oriented resources, there's Moms Rising, there's Vote Mama Foundation, and We the Parents, and you can find all of that linked in our show notes. And we will also link Instagram accounts. There are a lot of good Instagram accounts that Odd Moms is following that we love. But now it is time for Lindsey to take us into our hot take, which is fantastic when you hear some of the responses she got.
So our hot take for this week's episode is, if you had 30 seconds with Donald Trump, what would you say? There are so many possibilities here, and some of them we just won't mention. But I had to ask my book club. I am part of a liberal readers book club, and this is a pretty big variety of ages. Same demographic area, rural Missouri, red state, ages 34 to 75. There are lots of retired teachers, and I'd say at least 95% of the women in this group are mothers. And we typically read a lot of political books, and sometimes we'll throw in some historical fiction. So I asked these ladies this question. They told me I didn't give them enough time to answer since I waited till the end of the book club meeting. But these are some of their answers. My favorite answer is I would just vomit at him. That's my personal favorite response. We do have a fuck you, which that's, you could say that a lot of times in 30 seconds. A lot of people said I would need a lot more time to think about how to pack my 30 seconds with the right words. I mean, 30 seconds is not a lot of time. And then what I think a lot of us could agree with is really, why do you hate America? So I would love to know what responses the other odd moms have to add to this question.
I agree that 30 seconds is not enough time. And the more I thought about this, there were so many things. I've actually had a recurring dream where I tell off Donald Trump. It's the weirdest fucking thing ever. I'm a vivid dreamer and I dream every night, but I have a recurring dream where I'm just yelling at him. But I know it's ridiculous. What I came up with is going to be kind of a lackluster answer though, because I don't think anything that I would say to him, I don't think he'd hear it. I don't think he would acknowledge it. I don't think he would care. So there's a lot of things that I would love to say, and I would love to manufacture this 30 seconds of a total takedown.
Maybe that's where the vomiting comes in.
Yeah, maybe I would just puke on him. Maybe I would just puke on him. He'd probably just have me removed from this new $1 billion ballroom that he's building. But yeah, no, there's a lot of things. Why do you hate America is perfect. That's like chef's kiss. I just don't think anything that I could come up with, I don't think it would matter. I don't think it would matter to him.
I would just say, you sad, sad, sorry fuck of a man. That's it.
That's all
Like,
you need.
I don't even have any other words, man. Like, it's just at this point, it's just like sad, sorry fuck.
Yeah, Chelsea, I agree with a lot of what you were saying with regard to like not hearing. Cause like as I was reflecting on this, like earlier before we hit record, and even now, because there's like short questions I could ask, like, you know, how are we making America great if you're actively harming many of its citizens? But like you said, that's not going anywhere. On a like much more surface level, I would be interested to know why he's weirdly obsessed with Joe Biden and Taylor Swift, and like why he posts on Truth Social about them all the time, and in stark contrast, like has never posted once about the person that attempted to assassinate him / the two people, because there was the like second one on the golf course. Like
that
things
needs
like
to
that.
be an episode at some point. That needs to be an episode.
But like I agree. I think it wouldn't be heard. I think it would, you know, just in one ear out the other if he was even paying attention,
Or if he was even awake.
that too. I would actually rather have 30 seconds with Melania and ask if she voted for Harris, because that's my conspiracy
Yes.
theory.
Or are you okay? Or like, are you okay? Blink twice if you need us to remove you from, like, I'm not even kidding, you know?
Honestly, she's probably hoping she's next to get deported. I would be at that point.
Oh my God. She's like, get me out of this hellscape.
She's like, I'm here illegally. Let me go home, please.
I volunteer as tribute.
Yes. Lindsey, what would you say to him? What would you say to him if you could?
It is so hard. I did leave out the comment from one of them that said, I would just ask, why do you keep up with the orange makeup and the hair? Can you just give it a rest? That was pretty funny. But I love the why do you hate America one, or just like, why do you hate children? Why do you hate everyone? Like,
He doesn't hate
or
children.
like-
He loves children. He was besties with Epstein.
Yeah,
you're right. That was a
Mhm.
bad question. I think I would also like to say, like, did your mother hurt you? Like, did your mother hate you? Like what? I don't know.
I would like to note his mother was also an immigrant. She was from Scotland.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, a lot of the people in
He
the
has
White
to have
House
some like reactive attachment disorder. There's got to be something.
Something.
There's something serious.
Maybe
he was
we
not
get
snuggled
into-
enough as a child.
I don't know if Jess feels comfortable doing this, but we may need to have like a let's armchair diagnose Congress and the White House. Like, you know what I mean?
Run down like a whole list. This guy.
We'll open the DSM and we'll have a little party.
I know for sure they're all giving me trauma though.
Oh, yeah.
Even my therapist said.
Okay. Well, listen, this has been heavy and this has been a lot. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about this more because this stuff isn't going away. But like, as always, you never know when we're going to show up. Life is happening and we are doing our best and you are doing your best. Send us messages. Tell us what you want to hear because we want to talk about what you want to hear about. So anyway.
We're all pocket besties, and we encourage you to be pocket besties with us too. Send us a
Yes.
message. Let us know how you're feeling. If you need a place to vent, always an open space.
Always. And you are an odd mom, and I am an odd mom, and we are odd moms. And we will catch you on the next one.
You've been on the line with Odd Moms on Call.
Because parenting doesn't come with a manual, but at least we've got each other.
If you've loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe.
Leave us a review and share it with your fellow moms or anyone else who could use a little chaos with their coffee.
Got a hot take you'd like to share?
Send us a message or shoot us an email at oddmomsoncall@gmail.com.
We might just talk about it on the show.